'Twas the night before reset, and that villainous Klaus had ushered in the great culling. Oh, what a louse. Event 201, their intentions laid bare to conquer the world and poison the air. A frenzied control of the weather had led to a bio-collapse, the dying, the dead. Our homeworld in bondage, whose resources they sap, those rapacious elites who live in the lap. Skies of haze, grids and swirls, an aerial tatter, Earth's mercurial rags, a globe mad hatter. Using toxins for decades, they plundered for cash, then burrowed below to hoard up their stash. Such minions of evil, they'll keep up this show. They've no traffic with reason, or reap what you sow. The media lackeys have made it quite clear these parasite puppets are merchants of fear. Poisoned soil and air has made everything sick. So to hide their misdeeds, well, they've got a new shtick. COVID, they've called it. Pandemic's the game. Humanity's death knell, our free spirit to tame. From masking to lockdowns, all manner of submission. No business, no income without their permission. Then it drug on, and oh, what a haul for corporate purveyors while we took the fall. Along came Big Pharma, extorting nations to buy all of their fuel elixir. No choice, just comply. These billionaire bandits reaping profits beaucoup in the last marketplace, all our lands, me and you. They're paving the way to remain bulletproof, the road to enslavement ere fiat goes poof. To keep things afloat while their hustle abounds, they need all our bodies for medical rounds. They've hijacked our health care because all else is kaput. The last vested interest saved the ground underfoot. Yes, they'll have that too. They're so making tracks as they run our bodies for bucks with the vax. Complete usurpation, the great many unwary, the few were awake, was just a little bit scary. With new petty tyrants building camps as they go to quell the dissenters, they deploy Gestapo. These weasel enforcers sustain unrest and grief. Pernicious colluders set loose in the fief. Is there no stopping them now? It's so Machiavelli. How many lives will be lost if we don't cry, whoa, Nelly? Those horsemen, those four, their arrival so stealth. It's a war for the world and the hours near 12th. It's time to get ready. Pray your spirit be led to prepare for what's coming. Did you hear what I said? Beyond sycophants, where the enemy lurks, behind that thin veil, evil lives in the murk. Unleashed on the world until dangers impose, while heavenly hosts bring this age to a close. I bid you take comfort in Paul's Ephesians epistle. Put on all of that arm to confront the abyssal. And never forget that Jesus wins this great fight, and in your faith ride it out with our Lord God in his might. Retired soldier, special agent spy, turned whistleblower warrior, served in sabotage, rejected and redeemed, failed and forgiven, betrayed and saved, rejecting revenge, humbled and blessed, repurposed in redemption, as chaplain, leader, teacher, and truth teller. Now America's intelligence officer, following God, leading my family, and any that choose to join on our long walk to faith and freedom. Welcome, I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point. Hey, welcome everybody, happy to be with you. Almost Christmas, wishing you all a very Merry Christmas. If you're still looking for some Christmas gifts, then you can go on jeffreyprather.com/shop and go into the store there, and you can get Prather Private Label, my special blend from staybrew.com, or you can go to staybrew.com, or you can go to teamamericcoffee.com, but Prather Private Label is the best stuff of all. You can also go in the shop and you get lots of Faraday stuff. You get Faraday key bags. I love this new Faraday key bag with the magnetic attachment, or a more robust phone bag, or a real low profile phone bag for portable use. And then it moves right up onto large laptops as well. So great last minute gifts for the conservative constitutionalist on your gift list. So big show today, lots to cover. Going to jump right in. Comey cover-up confirms Cabal control. And I think that there's a lot of important stories, but I think this is the most important one. I hope you're following me on X, because I covered a lot of the Bondi Beach stuff on X over the weekend. But this is a deep state cover-up. A Clinton judge orders destruction of key evidence in the case against James Comey. So now remember, the Russiagate coup by the Praetorian Guard who run the government, the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA taking it overseas, all the intelligence committee in on it, a conspiracy to overthrow the government by overthrowing Trump. And nothing has been done about that. No investigations, although Liberty luminaries like myself have done all the investigating. So there's plenty of evidence, plenty of intelligence. And at the last minute, Pam Bondi throws together a half-hearted indictment of Comey. And it's not even about a conspiracy to overthrow the government or entrap Trump. It's simply about lying to Congress. And she does it at the last minute because it's about to the length of time for the crime to be exposed was about to end. But didn't go anywhere, got dismissed, of course, by a Clinton-appointed judge. Another Clinton-appointed judge has now told the FBI to effectively wipe the key evidentiary trail tied to the former director's obstruction case and do it quickly. Former FBI Director James Comey was indicted in September on charges of making false statements to Congress and obstructing congressional proceedings. Nothing really. He really should have been indicted for conspiring to overthrow the government and trap the president, because that's what he was doing, along with the FBI, along with the CIA. But this was all, of course, from Crossfire Hurricane. And Bondi did it at the last minute, so nothing would happen. Trump hasn't pursued it, so it looks like he's made some kind of deal. But U.S. District Judge Cameron McGowan-Curie, a Bill Clinton appointee, dismissed the indictments against Comey and the New York Attorney General Letitia James last month, ruling that the appointments of interim U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan, who pursued the charges, was unconstitutional, and thus the indictments were invalid. That is, she wasn't installed correctly, so the indictments are invalid. Bondi did anything about that? No, she's going along with that. And Trump evidently is going along with that as well. But today, another Clinton-appointed judge, Colleen Kolar-Kotelly, has ordered the FBI to destroy the emails by 4 p.m. on Monday. So these emails were from a guy named Richmond, who is not charged in the case and has no standing as a defendant in this. But this is not the normal way a Rule 4 works. It departs from the legal norms because Richmond is not the target of the prosecution, and Comey himself lacks standing to challenge the warrant executed on Richmond's accounts. Judge Kolar-Kotelly granted the motion on December 13th, ordered the Justice Department to return all data seized from Richmond, concluding that prosecutors handled the material with callous disregard for Richmond's rights and improperly used it to indict Comey. She directed that a copy of the emails be delivered to the Biden-appointed Judge Michael Nachapanoff, who is presiding over the Comey case in the Eastern District of Virginia. But even with that copy preserved, the ruling bars the FBI and prosecutors from reviewing these emails as they pursue a new indictment, which they're not even going to bother to do because they're going to say, oh, well, we can't do anything. And Bondi is in on this. And presumably Trump is okay with this as well. The FBI and the prosecution will be unable to review them in efforts to seek a new indictment if Curie's dismissal ruling survives on appeal. The statute of limitations, that's what I was trying to state before, law allows the government only 6 months after an indictment's dismissal, suspended during the appellate process, to seek a new indictment. The inability to view this evidence would substantially increase the time necessary to seek an indictment. And so that's going to be Bondi's excuse. Look, we can't do anything. And as I said, usually Rule 4 comes into play when a defendant has had property wrongfully seized and moves to reclaim it. Here, Comey is not seeking to reclaim anything. Richmond, and then government contractor with whom Comey communicated extensively about government business, is seeking the evidence. Richmond has run to a partisan Democrat judge, not even involved in the criminal case, not even in the same district, to procure the destruction of crucial evidence. And so this is totally outside the bounds of the way the Department of Justice works and the courts work. And this just shows the deep state is alive and well and protecting itself even from minor charges. And so that's why this is so important, that the Comey cover-up confirms the cabal still in control. So ordinarily, a judge presiding over the criminal case decides whether to suppress evidence under the Fourth Amendment, not a different judge. Comey cannot challenge the warrant against Richmond because he lacks standing to do so. Incredibly, Kohler Cotelli suggested that Richmond could move to quash this evidence in Virginia. She's going out of her way to help Comey. Judges presiding over cases often have excluded evidence against defendants as having obtained in violation of the Fourth Amendment. It is, however, extraordinary for a different judge, especially in different districts, to interfere and dramatically hamper the prosecution's case based upon a claim of a third party of wrongful search and seizure. So what does this mean? This means that not only is the CIA in on it, the DOJ, the FBI, but the federal judge system is in on it, and the cabal that is running the government as the Praetorian Guards are very, very much in control, and they have never lost control, and they are still there. So that's the bad news. That's the Comey cover-up confirms cabal control. This looks like that Trump made a deep state deal, because Trump has not pushed BONDI on all of this. The only thing he's doing is President Trump is doing a $10 billion civil suit against the BBC for saying things in a documentary that he did not say about January 6th. Now, under English law, even if you are a person of luminary status, as Trump is, you can sue. So he could win a lot of money here. Nothing wrong with that. He certainly deserves it. He gave his presidential salary away. He's had to pay millions in extraneous government fees that they've gone after him. But he's never asked for any investigations or entrapments against the FBI, CIA, Russiagate coup. The plotters, no civil suits, but he goes after an irrelevant BBC vid. And maybe that's what he knows he can get. But that really shows that it really wasn't too big to rig. Trump, it looks like, made a deal. And that's not a criticism of Trump. The country is much better off under Trump than Pedo Joe, and much better off under Trump than Harris. Oh my God. Okay. But it does look like he made a deal. The first term, his first term, America First, MAGA, is very different. Looks like he made a deal. MAGA turns into MEGA. Looks like make Israel great again. Although we're seeing some pushback that I'll get to that as well. But that he would not go after the deep state in any way, shape, or form and leave them in control. And so then he would get to do some things for the American people. And something was on agenda. That's what it looks like to me. The China tariff war and the cartel wars are steps in the right direction, but Trump is clearly cabal controlled. He has never, ever begun to fight the deep state war that I said that he had to fight. So he's going to file this lawsuit, $10 billion lawsuit against the BBC. And, I hope he wins it, but I think that illustrates very clearly, where we are at with all of that. And I see you guys on Rumble, and I don't know if I'm banned from YouTube again or not. So I've had lots of censorship and banning, but I also wanted to say that I have taken Mike Adams up on my offer. I just had Mike on a while back, and he's an old friend, and he's working on his Brighteon.ai project, his Enoch, to counter the corrupt AIs that are out there. And I wanted to highlight that, and he was telling us all about that. And he was asking me to write a book, and giving me a token, actually giving some of my Patreon patrons free tokens as well. So I have some other, if you are a jeffreyprather.com or patreon.com/jeffreyprather Patreon and you're like tokens, then you can talk to me there. And I've already given some of those tokens out so they could write books as well. But I did write my book, or rather AI wrote my book for me. And this is me turning the Claymore, turning the AI Claymore around. This is why I'm on X. This is why I'm on Facebook. Are they controlled platforms? Yes. Although most truth is coming out of X these days, but we've got to turn the Claymore and build the resistance. That's what I'm doing. So with my new AI book, Shadows of Deception, The Art and Science of Unmasking False Flags, I think I very ironically turned the Claymore, serves as an essential guide to recognizing and resisting the psychological warfare waged by government, intelligence agencies, and globalist entities. This meticulously researched book exposes the historical and contemporary use of false flag operations, covert acts designed to deceive and justify the expansion of authoritarian control. From the Reichstag fire to COVID-19 pandemic, readers will explore how false flags exploit human psychology, manipulate media narratives, and erode civil liberties under the guise of security. By dissecting case studies like 9/11 and the Gulf of Tonkin incident and the anthrax attacks, the book reveals the reoccurring patterns and inconsistencies that betray orchestrated deceptions. Readers will learn to identify the red flags of false flags, including the suppression of dissenting voices, the exploitation of crisis for policy justification, and the role of crisis actors in staged events. The book equips readers with a systematic framework to dismantle official narratives, demand transparency, and cultivate critical thinking as defense against manipulation. I got to say, this sounds really good. I haven't read it yet, of course, but with insights into the financial motivations behind false flags and the expansion of surveillance states, this book is a call to action for those who value truth, liberty, and decentralized sovereignty. Shadows of Deception is an indispensable resource for truth seekers, independent thinkers, and anyone committed to resisting institutional deception and reclaiming personal freedom. And the contents, chapter 1 is understanding false flags and their purpose. 2 is media manipulation and false narratives. 3 is the anatomy of a false flag. 4 is psychological warfare and public perception. 5 is financial motivations behind false flags. 6 is legal and legislative consequences. 7, investigative techniques for uncovering truth. So what to do about it. 8 is building resilience against false flags, which is excellent. 9 is taking action, what you can do. So that my new AI book is Shadows of Deception, and that is at brighteonlearn.ai. And I thank Mike for doing that for me and for promoting me there as well. Ropo says, good book, right to the point. Oh, somebody's already read it. Well, that's great. Tell your friends they could only read it if they can only read the first chapter. That would be, no, I think you can read all of it as well. There are vibes that the Russiagate is moving towards some charges, which may move on the deep state peeps. I think you're smoking opium there. I don't think that is happening at all. But I do want to get into the events of the past weekend before I get to my guest very briefly. And that is how we know that Brown is a false flag and tied to BONDI. And so the Brown University mass shooting occurred at the same time as the Bondi Beach. By the way, I was teaching a week-long corporate seminar on Bondi Beach a couple of years back, exactly where that was happening. And the Bondi Beach is totally recorded. And you can see the ponytailed female police officers not doing anything, not shooting back for 20 minutes. Then you see some old grizzled detective who comes up like a 40-yard shot with his pistol and shoots one of the terrorists. There's also a Muslim guy who disarms one of the other Muslims. There's some, he's a hero there, but there was some criticism that he put the weapon down. Well, if you're a Muslim guy and there's a shooting going on, I don't think you want to be holding the rifle as more cops arrive. Wouldn't put it against a tree, lean on and step on it, so it's out of control. Or he could not want to shoot another Muslim. We don't know, but he certainly did a lot more than the ponytail cops did until the grizzled old detective shot one of them. But of course, the Australian police were great about being despots during COVID and throwing people to the ground. But 2 of the students who survived the shooting at Brown University also supposedly survived 2 other well-known mass shootings. Zoe Weissman, a Parkland survivor, and now Mia Trett, a hardcore gun control and anti-Second Amendment advocate, both met with President Biden, Pedo Joe. Both have been making the rounds on CNN for more gun control, and that there would be 2 survivors of other mass shootings is just way too much of a coincidence. And Brown University had recently put out a cost of war projects findings, and this is up on my Patreon that you can see this, patreon.com/Jeffrey Prather. And some of those findings were in the 2 years since the October 7th, 2023 Hamas attack, which I've said was a setup for a stand down. The U.S. government has spent $21.7 billion on military aid to Israel. The U.S. has spent an additional $9.65 to $12.7 billion on military operations in Yemen, in the wider region, since October 7th, for a total of $31.35 billion. As of October 3rd, 2025, 67,000 people in Gaza have been killed and 169,430 people injured, according to the Gaza Ministry of Health. These 236,550,000 casualties constitute more than 10% of the pre-war population in Gaza. At least 5.27 million people have fled or been forced to leave Gaza. Military spending produces an average of 5 jobs per $1 million. The same investment in other sectors creates more employment. From 2020 to 2024, private firms received $2.4 million in contracts from the Pentagon. Approximately 54% of the department's discretionary spending of $4.4 trillion. The expanding tools of political influence used by the arms industry include extensive lobby missions, the revolving door funding think tanks. U.S.-backed Israel military operations October 7th will lead to far higher death toll. And so going on and on, this is on the Brown University website. You can look it up. That's where I pulled it from. This may be why this was a attack there. But this brown false flag is a false flag because we know almost nothing about it. It is quite obvious that the shooter script for Brown was so hurried and thus not so nonsensical so as to correspond with the Hanukkah and Bondi Beach shooting that the details would be laughably obvious if released. This is a desperate deep state supporting Israel Zionism at all costs. What will emerge, of course, is a Muslim shooter shouting Allah Akbar. And the chief there, the chief of police there is a DEI incompetent who doesn't even understand basic police terms. You can see him having stuff whispered in his ears. And they have incredible surveillance there, but nothing is being released there. Why? Because it is clearly a cover-up, and it is so ridiculous of a cover-up, so last minute. But this is actually good news, even though we're praying for the fallen, because it shows that they are desperate. They wanted this to happen in the United States, just like they wanted this to happen in Bondi Beach. In Bondi Beach, it was fouled up by a Muslim hero stepping up beyond the police. But Brown University has roughly 1 surveillance camera for every 9 undergraduate students. Yet despite that high level of surveillance, local authorities have not released a single clear front-facing video. They just released a guy, he's hooded up, the typical thing, looks like the January 6th pipe bomber. Could be the same thing. They did identify a suspect, then they misidentified the suspect, and now the FBI is walking through the snow, kicking the snow with their shoes. It is ridiculous. So this reeks of a false flag. The paucity of information, long blank timeline, the extensive but useless camera surveillance, and the Hanukkah timing with Bondi Beach reeks of a false flag. And the guy they had didn't even have enough evidence to be prosecuted. But I will get more to that later. I want to get to my guest who has been patiently waiting. She's an old friend. She's been on before. Marley is a champion of individual liberty in her leadership role on the New York election stage. She was the founder of the New York Citizens Audit, but if you build it, they will come and steal it. And I think that's what they did. But she is recovering from that. and she now has realamerica.vote. And she also has some great insight into the Tina Peters pardon that could work. So, Marley, thank you for your patience and welcome back to the Prather Point.
Hey, Jeff, it's great to see you again.
And the first I guess got to start off with, and is ask, and I have a message from my wife. How are the goats?
Oh, that's so sweet. You know, I had the blessing to be able to help her with her goats, but I've had to give my goats away because I do nothing with my life but work on these issues. I guess it's part of how I ended up having a possible solution for Tina, is because I just sit home and I read primary documents, and I don't have time for goats anymore. I don't garden. I hope to get back to it. I really do. If we get freedom back, I'm going to go out there and weed my garden. It is a mess.
Oh, well, you need that relief. You know, that's a good time to, pray and get out, but I hope you get back there. But yes, you do have a ingenious solution. And when I heard about it, I'm like, why didn't anybody else think of that? But please go ahead. Tell us about that.
Well, just to be clear, it's not my ingenious solution. It's James Madison's ingenious solution, as ever. And basically, at the time of the founding, there was a lot of distrust on both sides. The states were more like, of course, independent countries or nations than the way that we look at them now. So federalism for them was very real. And they were very concerned if there was going to be this general government that was going to be stronger than the existing convention, that they had to be able to run their own elections themselves, which put the general government at risk, right? Because now you have Congress. At the time, only the House of Representatives was directly elected, but now you've got all those seats in Congress are at risk if the states decide to, in Madison's words, go rogue. And this was covered again in 1970 in Oregon v. Mitchell, the Supreme Court case that covered the argument between the states and the federal government about whether they could lower the voting age nationally. There's really a lot of fascinating law in there, actually. But basically what they came to was a compromise. The states would administer the elections, but they would be simultaneously answerable to state law and federal enforcement. So the federal government has very little authority to influence the actual administrative process. They can set laws that dictate parts of that process, but they can't go in and meddle. But if the states don't do their job properly, the federal government gets to hold them accountable for subverting Congress. And so that's where Tina Peters, under Jenna Griswold is the chief election official of Colorado. Tina Peters, in 2020 was one of her subsidiary officers. Both of them and every election officer in Colorado answer to federal law directly. They are actually considered, from an 1888 case, and I quote, officers of Congress. So the argument that Jared Polis is making and the botched trials, all of them totally overlook this issue. They just claim, oh no, the states are in charge of elections, without ever doing any homework. Meanwhile, this beautiful woman is still in jail.
Gold star mom.
Yes, and a hero. She did her job. She maintained official records according to federal law, even though the state wanted her to break the law. So, and actually one thing that I want to say specifically, which I find fascinating, is that the way that this lays out in the Constitution is that the federal government, the general government, they accept the state's election statutes and the voter qualification statutes as if Congress had passed them. So it's not like there's such a thing as state election law. There is just election law. The states get to choose what it's going to be, and Congress graciously accepts it, but there's no pass on enforcement.
Was there precedence? For example, Arizona was trying to seat other delegates, and they came after them, but I can't remember whether the state came after them or the federal government came after them. Was there?
That would have been the state. Yeah, the states were the ones who were maliciously going after. Although I do think that the DOJ might have been involved at some time. In some of those cases, the DOJ was involved under Biden, of course. But there's absolutely precedent to establish alternate electors when you can see coming right down the road, coming right at you, that there could be a contested presidential race. It's just a normal process as long as Donald Trump isn't on the ballot, basically.
Well, certainly, but there's also precedence because under Pedo Joe, the DOJ went after some of these state electors. So how come? So there's the precedence for what you're talking about. So how come, other than Bondi being an idiot or Bondi being a shill, the DOJ, the AG, the Attorney General hasn't done anything about this, advised or taken it or stepped in?
Well, I don't know Bondi personally. I've not met her, and I can't speak to her character or her knowledge. What I can say is I have met with so many attorneys in so many states. I've met with attorneys in DC. I've met with attorneys in the DOJ. None of them have ever heard of this. It's not Bondi alone. This is old case law, very old case law, and it's an old concept. In fact, I even had one election law specialist attorney sit down in a meeting with me because he's like, okay, I know you have a really unique idea here. And it wasn't specific to the Tina Peters issue in this particular meeting. We sat down and I framed out a remedy, a solution for dealing with the midterms, the upcoming midterms, securing them properly. It took about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours before he sat back and he looked at me and he said, the problem with talking to you, Marley, is that you make me feel so dumb.
I just tweeted a while back, Marley Hornick, still the smartest lady in the room.
Right. Well, again, all I did was read John Locke, read James Madison, read Alexander Hamilton, read the ratification debates over the elections clause and the composition clause, read the Supreme Court decisions, and I'm not an attorney, so I don't have clients. I don't have a busy schedule. I mean, I have a busy life. Don't get me wrong. This has been a huge sacrifice from my family, from my farm. Like I said, I don't even have a farm anymore. But I do it for my country and I do it for my creator, and I'm willing to do the reading. And that really, when it boils down to it, that's all that someone needed to do. Someone just needed to do the damn reading.
But the closer you go back on constitutional law, my understanding is, and I've had lots of attorneys on the show, the closer you get back, like you get back to Washington or Madison or Franklin or something, that carries more weight. So bringing that precedent, that case law into a case should make a huge difference.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a shift in the way that these circumstances are being ruled on. The focus for such a long time, and this is how election law attorneys have been trained for decades. It's kind of like, you look at the medical field and you see doctors, they've been trained to prescribe. They haven't been trained to heal. And election law attorneys are the same phenomenon in my experience meeting with them, which is they're trained to argue about the weeds. They're trained to say, well, I think this ballot and that ballot, and this guy and over here. And they're not really trained to look at it in terms of like, hey, are we still tied to our rock here? Are we still having legitimate representative government? That's the first question anyone should be asking. Not, whether or not one or another ballot or this procedure or whatever is potentially harmful, but there's all this plausible deniability like built in because you can't tell. Once you separate a ballot from the voter, you have absolutely no idea how it got in the system. That's the reality.
Well, there has to be somebody to bring your brilliant analysis standing. So that could be either through Tina Peters' lawyers or through some voting group, perhaps some Colorado voting group that you might have contact with. Do I have that right?
Well, I'd like to see the weaponization committee handle it swiftly, to be truthful, because I don't want to see Tina Peters in jail another day. I don't think that there's any reason that this can't become an issue straight between the DOJ and the state of Colorado in front of the Supreme Court rapidly. I mean, I might be wrong, but that's what I think should be attempted first, because you start, state level litigation and you're really arguing with the people who don't think they have anything, they don't believe there's anything wrong with them, like most progressives.
But again, Trump pardoned the J6ers and has done a lot of pardons, and then issued this federal pardon. It would seem that someone would have brought to his attention, and then he would have brought it to Bondi's attention or somebody in the department to move on it.
Yeah, well, I did bring it to the attention of someone in the DOJ in July. I think that at that time, there were so many people kind of out in the forefront screaming and yelling, we're going to save Tina. I'm going to save Tina. I'm saving Tina. And it was like a battle to save Tina, like who was going to be the hero on the white horse. And I don't think that they really heard me. I think they were kind of just watching this fray. And I get it, because the election integrity movement generally is very undisciplined and wacky a lot of the time, which is kind of exhausting. And I personally know that a lot of credible people back away from it now. They just don't want to be associated with it because it's like, it's sad, actually. Think about the elections clause, for example. Now, this took a tremendous amount of disciplined philosophical argument and compromise to devise a solution where the state's determined election process and Congress was willing and also empowered to step in at any time to tweak the process, right? Now you see election integrity activists out in the streets and in these offices screaming to have their idea implemented. That is nothing but mob rule. I'm sorry. I know people are very frustrated with the way elections are being run right now, myself included. But if we throw away the elections clause and the extraordinary achievement it represents, we haven't done our country any service. We just have to be smarter than that. And it's just an example. So I think, again, when I was there in July and having this meeting, I think they just felt like we don't want to be involved. We don't want to be seen as involved with some of these people who are just screaming and yelling. And I get it.
Well, I hear idiot politicians all the time talking about our democracy, which drives me crazy because the founders hated democracy, mob rule, just like you said. But I hope that moves forward. So so a lot has gone on since you have been on last, and we haven't actually been in person together, I think, since we both spoke at the pit a long time ago. By the way, did you see that Greg Phillips has got some kind of FEMA position after he admitted under oath that he was an FBI informant?
I did not see that. I haven't really been tracking them.
Yes, looks like the deep state is making sure they are infiltrating. And did you know that he admitted under oath that he was an FBI informant?
I did not know that.
Oh, really? Yes.
That really creates a lot of confusion in terms of some of the allegations they made and the investigation they themselves were subjected to. But some of this stuff just makes your head spin, to be clear. I think, I remember being at the pit. I remember Greg had his mic on and he wasn't presenting at the moment. It was kind of like a change of the stage and change of speakers. And I just remember him sitting there and going, I still can't figure out how Marley's team reverse engineered those algorithms. So I don't know.
That was way back. But yeah, that is correct. He did admit under oath that he was an FBI informant. It's in the transcripts of the Texas case. And up until then, I was supporting him, but then I realized, and now he's got some kind of FEMA deputy director position as well. But let's go back to your what happened with your old organization and then now with your new organization. So did I get that? One of my major memes is if you build it, they will come and steal it, because that's happened to me over and over. It looks like it happened to you too.
Well, it did. I'm sorry to say I spent 3 years of my life founding and running an organization. And at the end of the day, I was called the beginning of September, just after, actually, because we had litigation in Colorado that was designed to prove that Tina Peters's jailers were actually administering elections that had false tallies and false voters and actually outright synthetic identities voting in them, on the watch of these election officials. And that amended petition was filed on August 4th of 2025. It was like 8 months of my life dedicated to rewriting this lawsuit and working with all these different attorneys. 3 weeks later, all of a sudden I got a call in the morning saying, we don't need you anymore. I go in, I'm locked out of all my systems. And they just picked up and they wrote a big piece. Harry Howery signed it saying, oh, we've had a difference in strategy, which I guess means we don't feel like fighting anymore. And Marley still is fighting. So we got to get rid of her. I have no idea. Anyway, that's pretty much ancient history now. I couldn't care. I'm just as dedicated to my country and my creator as I ever was. And now we have a lawsuit, Real America Vote and New York Citizens Audit collectively filed a lawsuit in New York State in federal court against Letitia James and the New York State Board of Elections. And it's a great opportunity through, terrible behavior by state officials, not surprisingly. It's a great opportunity to bring a whole host of election issues into federal court under the First Amendment. Because wouldn't you know, when we tried to get these situations fixed, right, we were auditing the state's own records, finding unbelievable violations of state law, which are, as everyone now knows, violations of federal law. And what happened? The State Board of Elections starts defaming us to our own representatives, sending preemptive, hostile, defamatory letters saying, hey, everything these people are saying is unequivocally false, and no one has ever seen the data anyway. So basically, they admitted that they never bothered to give a due process of law to citizens trying to fix election process by reviewing their reports before saying they were unequivocally false. Then they got their friend, Letitia James, to open an investigation into New York Citizens Audit under the Ku Klux Klan Act, something we found out about because we read about it on the front page of the Times-Union and Newsday and all the other major New York papers from Montauk to Buffalo. So now we have this great case in New York. We're expecting their motion to dismiss any minute so that we can file our reply, basically saying that they suppressed voter participation by investigating people attempting to verify the validity of their votes, the way their votes were counted, that they also suppressed or they directly interfered with the right to petition for redress of grievances, which again, if you go back to the founders, like the entire premise of what makes America special, why did they do this? Why do we have this amazing country? Is because we are guaranteed the right to choose and also remove our representatives in Congress, specifically in federal court where we're arguing. And so if you can choose those representatives, but then they don't have to listen to you. I mean, the right to petition was absolutely sacred to the framers. And so they deliberately interfered, deliberately sought to stop our representatives from listening to us when over 400 presentations were made statewide about the egregious problems that the State Board of Elections wanted to go away. I mean, it's just disgusting. And finally, at the end of the day, what we accuse the state of doing is violating the composition clause of the United States Constitution, which says this: the people choose the representatives and the states decide through statute who those voters are. And we say basically, we tried to bring these problems to their attention where we found millions of people registered to vote who don't meet those statutory qualifications. We found hundreds of thousands of votes counted from people who did not meet statutory voting qualifications. Then the state retaliates. And finally, at the end of the day, they don't want to clean this up. They want to keep violating the third sentence of the United States Constitution. And they want us to accept their stupid ass excuses saying that basically they just can't do any better. And we're just too dumb to know how accurate this information really is. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Well, Letitia, James was also in the Comey suit that I was talking about as well at the beginning of the show, being dismissed as well. But this is the same story across the country. It's the same thing that was happening in Arizona as well. No voting reform. I mean, do you agree with me that we thought it was too big to rig, but it looks like Trump made some kind of deal, because all of the voting corruption machines, the Smartmatic, all of that stuff was still in place. It's never been taken away. All the voting machines are still transmitting. Nothing's been done, but it looks like a deal was made that Trump would get to do some of his agenda, but he would also have to compromise. No prosecutions, this ridiculous little Comey thing about lying to Congress as opposed to running a coup to overthrow the government and displace the president, which is really what was happening. I mean, this is government-wide. This is the cabal, the deep state running the government. Don't you agree with that?
I think it's egregious what's happening, but I don't know. I'm not sure where you're getting the idea that Trump made some kind of a deal. So I'm not privy to that intelligence, but I do see Trump doing everything he can to try to crack the nut of the election problem. But I want to say that I have been meeting with people in DC, because once again, there's actually a very tidy solution, but you have to go back and you got to do the homework. You can't skip the homework. But there is a way that the executive in our nation has a pathway to walk. It's a very fine needle to thread, but has a way to fix this problem where the citizens are really being deprived of legitimate representative government. But again, right now, so far, everyone that has tried this and they've put out the EOs, they're really overreaching what the executive branch is afforded in terms of authority over elections in the Constitution, and with good reason. Like, if Biden had control over elections, we would all think that was a terrible thing. And, so with good reason, again, these safeguards are in place. We just have to learn, go back in and study, because the framers they didn't forget any part of it. They didn't overlook anything. They saw every kind of creepy, dumb, self-aggrandizing human trying to get into politics just like we do. And they knew how to build a system to minimize the influence that those people could have. So we just have to go back and say, okay, how did they want to handle this? And then there you go. Now you're not, now what is Mark Elias going to do? How is he going to win when you're going right back to the rock and saying, hey, you know what? I'm sitting here on this rock and it says this. And boy, does this look like, your days are numbered, pal.
Yeah, Mark Elias was attacking, basic county electoral guys in Cochise County. I remember the big attack dog was brought down there to go after them, and we were trying to help them, and they ended up folding as well. I know you got to go. One more question. I'm not aware of what Trump is doing to pursue election reform. Please tell me.
Oh, well, he had signed that great executive order back in March. It was one of the first things that they put out. I don't even know if he waited until March, but unfortunately, there's two problems with what he did. First of all, he overstepped his executive powers in trying to command repairs to election process without effectively demonstrating that it was warranted. And this is a very, very difficult, like I said, it's a really hard needle to thread. How do you show that the elections are broken when your entire legal team is designed to go down to the micro level and argue it ballot by ballot? You really cannot show that the elections are broken that way. You have to go back up to the top and say, how are the elections supposed to be functioning? What are the bare minimum promises that the citizens have in protection of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or property, if you want to be more technical? how was this really supposed to work? So anyway, he put out this EO and basically said, we need this documentary proof of citizenship. And of course, the Brennan Center has a fake study that they did on 2,300 voters. They phone called 2,300 people across the country and asked them, do you have documentary proof of citizenship readily available, which is apparently a new statute that the Brennan Center passed, which is if you do not have documentary proof of citizenship readily available, which means like basically in your purse or your wallet, then you're disenfranchised and your voting rights are being denied. I mean, it's like the most outrageous, stupid study you can imagine. And on top of it, when they did this study, they couldn't find a single person who had been disenfranchised. In fact, they just said, oh, well, we found 11 million people who don't have documentary proof of citizenship readily available because they have it in a safety deposit box at a bank, for example. They're so smart that they took extreme measures to protect those documents. Or they have them, they're in college and they store them back at their parents' house or something like that. So it's like, oh, well, if they happen to be driving by, an opportunity to register to vote, they would have to, they wouldn't be able to take advantage of that easy opportunity. I mean, it's just outrageous what these crooks will argue. Then on top of it, they said, oh, there's another 9 million people who are disenfranchised by documentary proof of citizenship because their documents were lost, damaged, or stolen. Okay, so they couldn't find a single person. What I'm saying is they could not find a single person on a statistical basis who had been incapable of getting documents. All of them could afford documents. Many of them could afford extreme care over those documents. Many of them were very intelligent and took logical and complicated steps to protect them. Couldn't find a single person who didn't have them, just flat out. In fact, they even said in the study, we've excluded those categories because they were so negligible. But this is who's facing the Trump administration in court. And of course, the federal judges who are, a lot of them are really, ideologically entwined with Elias. They just buy it. And what do we have on the other side? And this is what I did, actually. This is what my organization for those 3 years was designed to do, what we accomplished. Now I'm completely locked out of the work, which is an egregious violation of what I worked to build and what those people volunteered in order to do, in order to effectuate together, is that no one on the conservative side ever took a measurement, ever said, hey, let's find out how many registration records are bogus. Let's find out how many fraudulent votes were counted according to statute. So we did, we measured that. And I was like, boy, every day I was like calling all my people. I said, I know, the chief White House counsel, can you please get this information to him so he knows that we can back him with measurements? Because otherwise the Brennan Center is going to win. When you have a bunch of hot air facing a bunch of hot air, then, the most compassionate hot air wins for whatever reason.
Wow. Yes. That is, a long haul, but I'm glad you are still working on it. And I know you got to go.
We'll win. I do have to go because my kids are going to be freezing. It's really cold up here right now. And they're going to be sitting outside their school waiting for me. But, we will win. I just want to say we will win. We'll never, ever quit. America is worth it. You cannot back down. We will keep the republic. And if you can support the litigation work that we're doing at realamerica.vote, please do so. It's all citizen funded. It's all citizen run. And it's for our country. So please do go to realamerica.vote, give us a shout out, follow us on X, and send us, $10 a month, whatever you can afford. It will make a huge difference in saving our country together.
And Team America New York will continue to work with you, Marley. Good to see you. Have a Merry Christmas and God bless.
You too. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, there's the great Marley Hornick. Really some great insight there. And thanks to Team America New York for getting me back in touch with her as well. So Ropo sounds like it's all purposeful to stall justice. Yes, certainly that is the case, and I think. But she didn't really see my point about Trump having made a deal. But I think it's pretty obvious at this point that there must have been some kind of deal made, that it wasn't too big to rig, but that, hey, we'll let you back in and do some of your agenda as long as you put Israel first, as long as you don't go after the deep state. And like I said, talking about election reform, an EO, an executive order, is not election reform. Sending attorneys generals out to all the states to examine the ballots, that's election reform. But we don't see any of that because the deep state, the cabal, is still in control. But good talking with Marley. I want to get back to Bondi Beach and how Mossad's prints are all over the Bondi Beach shoot. And so there were at least 15, I think, killed now and 30 injured in the terror attack at Bondi Beach over Hanukkah. A couple of years back, I did a week-long corporate seminar right there on that beach. And I commented a great deal on this as it unfolded on Sunday, which is why you should follow me on X as well. And that's x.com/Jeffrey Prather, where I'm continually turning the claymore. Israel, Google history, Googled the history of the terrorists the day before, along with the Brown University mass shootings debacle, indicate yet another Israeli false flag. It also appears that the Uvalde cowardness infestation has spread to Australian police as well. But a Muslim hero disarmed one of the gunmen, detracting from the false flag and effect of reinforcing Jews in Israel as the perennial victims. So this terror attack was carried out by two gunmen targeting a Hanukkah celebration at Bondi Beach, left about 15 dead, 30 injured. There was a Muslim man who came up and disarmed one of the attackers, then set the rifle down. There was another shot of one of the, and they were using bolt action rifles because that's what you can have, because Australia has disarmed everybody from owning their handguns. And that looked like it was a setup. I love Australia. I've been there many times. I've taught a lot of seminars in Australia, but I just can't believe they are disarmed. They're primarily a rural country. Rural folks usually have weapons. But there were 20 minutes with 4 policemen there. And I think 2 of them at least were females who did not fire back at all. And so this is the DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, poison that has infested all of law enforcement everywhere. It's police chiefs of color who are incompetent, like the Providence, Rhode Island chief, who doesn't know the difference between detainment and arrest. These ponytailed police who won't draw their weapons and get in the fight. One of the suspects has been identified as Naveed Akram, a Muslim man of Pakistani origin. He snuck up and got one of the guns away. Then somebody else was trying to use it. And there's also now footage of an Australian detective who takes a 40-yard shot and drops one of the terrorists, showing that you can do it with handguns. That's the HMAC, the Handgun Martial Arts club that I founded back in 2009, that we train monthly, and you can train with me online at patreon.com/Jeffrey Prather at the Point Patriot $25 a month level. That we have to be better with our pistols than they are with their rifles. This detective certainly shows that. But it certainly looks like this is a Mossad false flag. Israeli Arsen Ostrovsky just was at the October 7th crisis, and now he shows up on Bondi Beach with blood dripping from his head. Then he put a bandage on without them wiping the blood off, which is not what you do when you're bandaging somebody up. And it turns out that it was fake blood as well. And of course, Netanyahu came out and said there was a brave Jew who disarmed one of the shooters when it wasn't Jewish at all. So the fact that this October 7th collaborator and the fact that Israelis were Googling the terrorists the day before And this happens at Hanukkah, and this happens at the same time that Brown happens. And I'm sure eventually we're going to hear this was a Muslim attacker. And of course, Brown had this document that was criticizing all the October 7th billions of dollars we have sent to Israel since then. This is all more of Mossad's winning through deception. That's paraphrasing their motto. And then, of course, we've got the FBI foiling a bomb plot by the Turtle Island Liberation Front. So Turtle Island is an Indian term. American Indians use that term for America. And supposedly this is, more bombs, setting off IEDs in the desert. Of course, we always know this is what the FBI does. They set up somebody, they entrap them, they give them the bomb materials, they take them out to the location, they set the whole thing up. And this is, again, trying to make the FBI look like it is something other than the cleanup crew for the deep state. But every time I hear this Turtle Island Liberation Front, I just got to laugh. It is so ridiculous as well. Yes, Marley's organization, thank you, is realamerica.vote, realamerica.vote, where you can support her and her great efforts. She does need to get back to her homestead, though. It's tough. It's a lot of work to do that. But more to come, but I'm sure we're going to see this false flag stuff pan out even more. But I am, again, predicting these are Mossad Israeli-based false flag efforts. Moving on, Trump has designated fentanyl as a WMD, weapon of mass destruction. I never made a fentanyl arrest. There was no fentanyl back in my day, but I was cross-designated. I was credentialed as a DEA special agent and as a DIA intelligence officer simultaneously, because the DOD was involved in the so-called war on drugs, which was never really a war. Now it is actually a war, and this is something that I think Trump has got right and is doing well, or is being allowed to do. And Trump designated fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction in a executive order, I think is excellent. I've always said, that cocaine and marijuana and heroin are drugs run by drug traffickers, but fentanyl is not. It's a bioweapon that has been masquerading as a drug. Now it's used, in doctors and veterinarians' offices as well, but you often see it mixed in with cocaine as well, and it's so much more lethal. So I think Trump has got this exactly right. Fentanyl is a weapon of mass destruction. It's a biological weapon. Biological weapons are worse than chemical weapons. Chemical weapons are worse than nuclear weapons. So this order formally classifying fentanyl as a WMD expands military and law enforcement coordination, escalates U.S. efforts against transnational drug cartels. Also, Trump has authorized the Border Defense Medal for the military, at least for the Army, which also clearly places the war on drugs where it should have always been, with the war fighters. And so this is good news. So, if I was still, in the reserves, I could get my little, ribbon for that. And this also fits in perfectly with Trump's tariff war against China's unrestricted war that has been going on. Because again, fentanyl masquerading as a drug, but really a bioweapon, which again is worse than chemical, which is worse than nuclear, and fighting it in an unrestricted warfare method is doing exactly the right thing. So pay attention. For those of you who think I only criticize Trump, is here I am complimenting what he is doing. On Monday, Trump signed an executive order formally designated fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, significantly expanding the federal government's legal and operational frameworks for combating narco trafficking. He's also taken a lot of the border and given it under the Navy, so that they have jurisdictions there. That's great. That's really an important and serious move as well. You can't fight transnational drug organizations that they are like their own countries. They have their own armies. They have their own intelligence services. You can't fight those with law enforcement. Border Patrol has never been able to do that sufficiently. DEA has never been able to do that. Now, when I was DEA SNOWCAP, where we were trained at the 4th Ranger Training Battalion, or before that with 7th Special Forces Group, and then deployed with host nation police and military counter drugs, we were really performing a paramilitary role, and we were really the first international law enforcement, but it was really a paramilitary role. I mean, we had M4s, and this is a step in the right direction for that. The order further states that the two primary cartels responsible for fentanyl distribution in the United States engage in armed conflict to protect territory and operations. It's exactly right. Resulting in large-scale violence beyond the immediate effects of the drug itself. That's exactly right as well. Under the directive, the Secretary of War, Attorney General instructed to assess whether the threat posed by illicit fentanyl warrants, providing the Department of War resources to the Department of Justice to support enforcement actions under federal criminal law. No, that's wrong. Don't go back to the Department of Justice to do this. Let it stay in the Department of War and fight it like a war. Trump announced the signing during a Mexican Border Defense Medal presentation honoring service members assisting the Customs and Border Protection at the Arizona, Texas, Mexican border. And Trump said that fentanyl constitutes a deliberate attack on the American population. There's no doubt that America's adversaries are trafficking fentanyl, in part because they want to kill Americans. If this were a war, that would be one of the worst wars. It is a war. I don't know why he's saying if it was a war. He says no bomb does what it is doing. 200,000 to 300,000 people die every year that we know of. That's right. So the designation builds on earlier actions by the administration. Last month, the Wall Street Journal reported the Trump administration already classified fentanyl as a potential chemical weapon threat being smuggled aboard Venezuelan drug vessels, a determination used to justify maritime interdictions and strikes in the Caribbean and Western Pacific. I think that's a very strong Judge Advocate General's JAG illustration. I think it works. I think it's good. Ropo, I listen because you're balanced and call anyone out. Good for you. Well, thanks for that. I'm trying to, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to sing Trump's praises. I'm not trying to go after Trump. I'm saying when he's doing right and when he's doing something wrong as well. And so the war on drugs is finally really a war. Now, this is partially why, if you remember, I left active duty in 1990. So I was preparing for the Panama invasion while working the Contra issue, flying across the isthmus on a Black Hawk every day. And then my group had deployed. I was there already working the Contra thing in Quarry Heights back in a tunnel. And then 7th Group deployed, my battalion deployed, preparing for the Panama invasion. And we were at Fort Sherman, which is the Jungle Warfare School, and there was another ODA, Operational Detachment A team, training a bunch of long-haired guys. I thought they were CIA. I went over to Captain Logan, who was running that team, friend of mine, to see who they were. They were not CIA. They were DEA. They were Drug Enforcement Administration agents. So I got to talking to some of them. In fact, I got to talking to the founder of SNOWCAP, DEA Special Agent Frank White, who's a legend, who, when questioned by the judge in Miami of why he shot a guy still holding a gun 14 times, he famously answered, "That's all the ammunition I had, Your Honor." Anyway, I was a Spanish-speaking military intelligence special forces qualified guy, and so they were exactly what I was looking for DEA. Couldn't go. I had to do a year in Korea, but then, that was my first year outside of SOCOM in conventional army. I hated it. I just could not believe how stupid it was. So I left active duty and went into the DEA. at that point. And then I was shortly thereafter recruited into a specialized Tier 1 military intelligence unit, Foreign Operations Group. And then later on, that became the Foreign Intelligence Activity. And then later on, that went into being the subset of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Pentagon's CIA. But at this time, in the 90s, is when it was the war on drugs. And so everybody wants to get on the war on drugs because there's a lot of money involved. But because it was primarily law enforcement run, it was never really a war. Although we in Snowcap, I think, approximated closely what that looked like. We were kind of like Green Beret advisors, although most Snowcap guys weren't anywhere near the level of special forces, I'll say very clearly. But now designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs, and designating fentanyl as a WMD, this is the way to go. But not handing it back to the DOJ, leave it in the DOD, and let them fight a war. Don't also do mission creep like Operation Gothic Serpent in Somalia, Black Hawk Down, where all of a sudden they're trying to arrest. No, that's not the purpose of the military. The purpose of the military is to kill the enemy until they surrender. There's an article I published on my Patreon, The War on Drugs Finally Has Teeth. And it quotes knife, variable. This is knife, standing by, copy. Variable, knife, this is variable. Your signal is 5x5. The chicken is in the pot, cook it. So that's the movie Clear and Present Danger. You know, I know it very well because Harrison Ford actually came down to when we were doing a mount out pre-deployment train up for a snowcap operation because he was doing research. And also Clear and Present Danger, the movie features my old group, 7th Special Forces Group. Really cool movie. Shows what the military should look like when they're doing it. Of course, they do get abandoned there. So by the CIA who puts them in there. So it's pretty realistic. If you haven't ever seen Clear and Present Danger, really good movie, good Harrison Ford movie. As well. Clear and Present Danger is a favorite of mine. It features my old group, 7th Special Forces. And I got Harrison Ford's autograph when he visited our DEA Operation Snowcap team's pre-deployment mount-out operations at Quantico while researching the film. China's Cajun Navy mentioned herein fits precisely with China's unrestricted warfare strategy and Thousand Talents infiltration plan. And as I have long said, one cannot fight a war with cops. Indeed, Snowcap often paired with us with host military, and having trained up out of the 4th Ranger Training Battalion, we were clearly in a warfighter, not LE law enforcement role. This is Trump and Hegseth doing the work. Doing the work is something military guys say when they are fighting and killing the enemy. So the United States is carrying out lethal strikes against narco-terrorists in the Caribbean, Eastern Pacific. And most Democrats and Republicans agree on this. I do see a former Snowcap guy who is now the sheriff of Santa Cruz County, which is where Nogales is inside, saying this is wrong, shouldn't be doing it. I totally disagree with him. He's talking about Venezuela hasn't done any harm for us. Venezuela has done tons of harms for us. It's a transshipment point for China and for the global cabal. So I don't know why he's saying that. I guess he is a Democrat, even though he was a hard-charging Snowcap guy back in the day. But operations in the Caribbean against designated narco-terrorists are functioning as a live rehearsal for a very different conflict, one the United States hopes it never has to fight, but increasingly anticipates a war with China. This article says, we're already at war with China. This is what he gets wrong. We've been at war with China for 20 years when they came out with their doctrine of unrestricted warfare, which meant we are not going to take the United States head on. Nobody can beat them head on. We're going to take them every way except head on. And that's their doctrine of unrestricted warfare. They've taken over our economy. They're infiltrating our country through the Thousand Talents programs. Trump just authorized 600,000 Chinese to come in. The war is raging. It's a 5th generation war. Doesn't look like a war. It is raging. Trump's tariff war against the Chinese unrestricted warfare is the first and only and a successful effort against that. But the low intensity conflict or unconventional or asymmetrical warfare of hitting these go fast boats is very much like hitting China's Cajun fleet, which are intelligence boats, trawlers disguised as as fishing boats as well. So again, I've said this for years now. I'll say it again. You're never, ever going to see Chinese uniforms coming to the United States. They know that if they did that, everybody would unify. After the metrosexual coast fall, every cowboy, Indian, hillbilly, briar, motorcycle member, who am I missing? Would be behind every rock. Yamamoto understood this as well. So they don't make it look like warfare. But the war in Ukraine has also been a proving ground for new military technologies. So this is not just counter-drug work. It is practice, and it is practice and we are countering Chinese influence in the region there as well. Beijing has quietly been building a massive paramilitary force at sea, not through warships, but through thousands of civilian fishing boats. Many are subsidized by the Chinese government. And again, that's the unrestricted warfare that nobody in the U.S. government seems to be able to recognize and coordinate through official channels. Some are equipped with reinforced hulls, military communications, dedicated support from the Chinese Coast Guard. These vessels form what analysts call China's maritime militia, a force that operates in disputed waters without wearing uniforms or raising flags. They swarm reefs and islands, harass foreign ships, and create a constant low-level pressure that is difficult to respond to without risking escalation. And where else in history have you seen civilian boats come to the rescue when the military could not and would have been targeted? I will wait for the answer for a second. Fishing boats, like Russian fishing boats. The answer is Dunkirk. When Winston Churchill appealed to all of the British small boat owners, and they saved the army and they rescued them. Dunkirk. So this precedent works very well. And so I don't have any problem at all with the DOD targeting these go-fast boats at all. I do have a problem for if the two sailors on these ships their boat has sunk and then they were fired upon in the water, that's violating maritime law. You do have a duty to rescue those once they are no longer non-combatants, but I'm not clear on where that's at. Maybe somebody can elaborate on that as well for me. But that's been a controversy. If they were indeed fired upon after they were no longer capable of transporting their lethal cargo, then that is a violation. That's a sin, and that is a criminal violation. But I don't have the details on that, but I know that's been going back and forth. But to deter China, the United States must demonstrate capability, not just conviction. And the Caribbean offers a place to do that without risking a great power clash, certainly within our center of influence as well. And when we track narco subs, intercept and destroy fast boats, and fuse intelligence from drones, satellites, and underwater sensors, we're practicing the very skills we would need against China's maritime militia and its growing fleet of unarmed submersible drones. These operations show that the American systems can find, classify, and respond to elusive threats in real time, but that deterrence power only holds if we invest now in the smart technologies, autonomous surveillance, AI-driven analysis, rapid decision tools. That's kind of drivel that makes these demonstrations possible. Deadly and committed resolve in the Caribbean isn't a distraction. It's a signal to China and other near-peer adversaries. I agree with that. And that's certainly within our sphere of influence, where we should be definitely operating. Where we don't need to be operating at all is in Syria. And we are still there, and our troops are still dying there. And there is no reason for that to be happening at this point. And I really keep going back and forth on whether to recommend to young folks now to join the military. Certainly under Pedo Joe, I said, don't join. He'll leave you in a heartbeat. And it's all about tranny troops who couldn't deploy anyway because they wouldn't get all their hormone treatments. So I go back and forth this. I was saying you could join under Trump. He wouldn't spend your lives carelessly. And then I said, nope, he's in thrall to Israel. They haven't deployed troops yet to Gaza. Those are contractors. But we're still in Syria. And he said he would pull out, but he never did. Because on December 13th, 2 U.S. soldiers and a civilian interpreter were killed near Palmyra, Syria. A lone Islamic State ISIS gunman disguised as a shepherd opened fire on a joint U.S.-Syrian patrol, killing 3 and wounding 3 before Syrian troops shot him dead. Trump responded with characteristic fury. He promised very serious retaliation. I hope that does not mean more troops in the region. We need to pull our troops out of there. So prayers for the family of the fallen. Trump first told Americans he had won against ISIS in 2018, ordered U.S. troops home. In reality, the Pentagon and congressional pressure kept about half of the roughly 2,000 troops in place. Less than a year later, he issued another withdrawal order, but officials left 90% of the force to guard oil fields. So Trump was really trying to pull him out, do the right thing. Military-industrial complex, Pentagon fighting against him. Behind the scenes, U.S. officials were playing shell games. James Jeffrey, Trump's envoy for Syria, later admitted they deliberately misled the president about troop numbers. That's treason. We're always playing shell games to not make clear to our leadership how many troops we had there. Though Trump publicly agreed to keep only 200 to 400 troops, the actual number was a lot more. Journalists eventually learned that it was roughly 900 troops remained. The Pentagon continued to slow-roll civilian orders after Trump returned to office in 2025. In December 2024, the Defense Department quietly acknowledged there were about 2,000 U.S. troops in Syria, roughly 1,100 more than the 900 core personnel previously reported, deployed to meet fluid mission requirements. Thomas Barrack announced the new U.S. envoy, Thomas Barrack, announced plans to close most of the 8 bases and consolidate operations in Hazaka province. Yet by November 2025, Reuters reported that the Pentagon intended to have the troop presence to 1,000, establish a new base at Damascus airport, a sign that numbers change on paper while boots stay on the ground. Understanding why American troops are still in Syria requires grappling with the identity of its new president, Ahmed Hussein al-Shara, better known as Abu Muhammad al-Julani, who joined al-Qaeda in Iraq and later founded the al-Nusra Front. After splitting from al-Qaeda, the group remained as a Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which the United Nations and the United States still classify as a terrorist organization. In late 2024, they swept across Syria, toppling Bashar Assad's government, ending a 13-year civil war. By January 2025, its leader proclaimed himself interim president, adopted the name Ahmed al-Shara. Despite the rebranding, Congressional Research Services noted that they and Shara remain on UN sanctions list. But Trump embraced Shara as an ally in 2025. In May, he met the Syrian leader in Riyadh and praised him as a tough leader. Following November, he welcomed Shara to the White House. I remember this. Al-Qaeda in the White House. The first visit this happened under Pedo Joe too. The first visit by a Syrian head of state since 1946, and told reporters he's doing a really good job. While he lavished praise on Shara, the U.S. mission became even more confused. The December 13th ambush occurred near Al-Tanfa Garrison, a longstanding U.S. base in Homs province where special forces trained the Syrian Free Army. So that's important to realize. It was SF training Syrian Free Army there, and the U.S. soldiers partner with Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces. Remember, the horse soldiers were working with the Kurds back in the day. America's first response after 9/11. They're working with Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, and remnants of SFA, providing intelligence. That's Syrian Free Army, air support, and training. Proxy attacks in 2024 prompted a temporary surge of about 900 to 2,000 troops. By 2025, the United States fielded about 2,000 troops in Syria alongside 2,500 coalition personnel in Iraq. Officials now propose reducing to 1,000 and closing most bases. Yet sources say Pentagon intends to retain an air base in Damascus, evidence that the mission is evolving rather than ending. Interventionists warned that Shara's government cannot handle ISIS alone and argued that around 1,000 to 2,000 U.S. troops are needed because HTS has fought ISIS since 2013 and lacks the capacity to manage detention camps and large-scale operations. It's just not it is not the way they work, is they change sides all the time. Keeping troops in Syria has not prevented attacks. It has created more targets. I agree with that. ISIS still fields between 5,000 to 7,000 fighters in Syria and Iraq. The deadliest previous attack on U.S. troops in Syria occurred in 2019 when 4 Americans were killed in Manbij. The December 25 ambush shows that ISIS cells remain capable of inflicting casualties. We need to pull our troops out of Syria. That is the most important thing to understand there. Interventionists also claim that the U.S. president denies ISIS oil revenue, yet officials concede that the group's main income comes from extortion, smuggling, and protection rackets. Focusing on oil might even give ISIS a propaganda boom. American troops remain in Syria because policymakers refuse to accept that they cannot remake the Middle East. 15 years after the U.S. first sent special forces to fight ISIS, the mission has mutated into an open-ended occupation. Washington justified its presence by pointing to terrorist remnants, protecting oil, deterring Iran, or supporting Israel. Interchangeable rationales that ensure there is always a reason to stay. Meanwhile, the Syrian battlefield is littered with shifting alliances, jihadist fragments, and national grievances. In that environment, a handful of U.S. personnel become symbolic targets, as the December 13th attack shows. From a non-interventionist perspective, the solution is simple. America should end its military presence in Syria and let regional actors solve their own problems. Doesn't mean abandoning diplomacy. Washington can support humanitarian efforts, but the current strategy, keeping a small force exposed to insurgent attacks, is morally indefensible and inexcusable. And I feel very, very strongly about that. Ohio Po' Boy says there were 2 survivors swimming towards the boat's wreckage. The boat was not destroyed completely, so the admiral fired on the boat again, making it incapable of it. Did not exist after that detonation. Okay, so it sounds like they should not have shot those guys. They should have rescued them. Why didn't they want to rescue them? Well, probably because they didn't want to find out who they were really working for, because then they'd probably talk, and that would complicate things. Why? Because they might be Chinese. There's no identification there, so they don't want to. That's probably why they did that, which I disagree with. If I'm understanding what Ohio Po' Boy is saying there, thank you for that, Ohio Po' Boy. And lastly, the last thing I want to cover today is Erica blinks and meets with Owens. And so right before the show was on, I was running around YouTube, and I think I'm off YouTube again. Let me know, somebody, if I'm not. But we don't really know what they talked about for 4.5 hours. There was no recording or everything, but the significance is not what they said. Erica must and will continue the script, but that her position was so untenable, she had to meet with Owens. Erica has blinked. And therefore, so has TPUSA, and therefore, so has the government that is behind this. The governments, the Egyptian, Israeli, American, looks like the Cabal. So Erica Kirk, the widow of slain conservative influencer Charlie Kirk, met with podcaster Candace Owens in a private in-person discussion Monday, December 15th, marking the first direct conversation. The meeting was arranged after weeks of public tension. And remember, of course, they had announced it. Hey, this is the time. They'd even sent her a message, and then they say, you got to be there in person. And she's like, that's unreasonable. I'm not going to go there in person. I sure wouldn't go there in person. I was going to open for General Flynn at the Phoenix Clay Clark event, and I thought there was something up, and I didn't go to that. I never walk into a trap. I've talked about that many, many times. So both women agreed to pause public discussions, live streams, and tweets until the meeting, signaling a temporary truce. And that's Erica, which is TPUSA, which is the Cabal, the American, Israeli, and Egyptian government, signaling a truce which means we are winning. Let me be very clear about this. If you're not, this is a very positive podcast today. I'm telling you, we are winning on multiple fronts, in case that's not clear. Owens indicated she'd share more details soon. Meeting comes after significant scrutiny of Owens' claims, including a defamation lawsuit by the French President Emmanuel Macron and First Lady Brigitte Macron over her assertions of Macron's gender. And it looks like Macron was, I'm not really following this. I don't really follow this, but it looks like Michelle Obama was a female growing up, but then had the trans surgery at adult. It may be the same. I'm not really following that. Maybe somebody can help that as well. How do you help your children not feel ashamed of their country's decisions? Well, I don't. I want them to be ashamed and morally outraged at that. At the same time, I'm inoculating them to the evil by making sure that they understand that since the garden, we have a fallen human nature, not the heresy of original sin. And so not to put a lot of confidence in government, but to put their faith, not belief, in Yeshua as Hamashiach, as Jesus, as the Christ, and as the moral compass there. But a belief that Trump is going to save us or that the U.S. government's going to save us is a false belief, as opposed to saved in Yeshua, and all governments are going to fall short of what they should be, which doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing the best to continue to work at what we can. But I will tell you that the sophistication of my children, it just awes me. They understand human nature so much better than I do. They are so discerning. They know scripture so well. Their relationship with Jesus is so much better than mine ever was. They're so far ahead of me. I'm very confident in them being able to navigate the rough road they have ahead, which is why we're living out in the country. But appreciate you asking the question there. Make sure I haven't, let me pull up here, make sure I haven't ignored anybody on, oh yeah, holy smoke, I've ignored X. Sorry about that. Let me look here real quick. Hi, Joe Crosby. The way my stuff is set up, I have to kind of skim. Dave, work is fun, fighting is tough, and requires constant attention. That is the truth. Earl Jackson looks like Vanity Fair, Pete and Susie Wiles Wheaties with their article. I saw that. Susie Wiles, J.D. Vance, and the Junkyard Dogs, the White House chief of staff on Trump's second term, where she's saying J.D. Vance believes in conspiracy theories. Well, why Susie is a shill for Israel. So she just made she made Vance look good there. And his answer was pretty good there. Stay Brood, there you go as well. Mossad false flag operation coordinated due to the recent Australian protest against the Gaza genocide. Yes, that's very true as well. And of course, they're already talking about more gun legislation in Australia, although what it turns out is the cops need more guns. The cops need patrol rifles, but first, of course, they need some guts. That's why I posted on my Patreon my favorite scene from LA Confidential when cops were more knuckle draggers. Tom Lugo could make a federal law today to make voting one day in person. Yes, well, they could, but they won't do that. And no machines. It's easy solutions. but of course, they are paid off. I think that's what happened with, we didn't get to ask her about that. I think that's what happened with Marley's organization, is somebody paid them off to throw her out as well. Phillips turned out to be a snake. Yep, I was helping him out. I was all ready to help him set up fusion centers, because I've run that stuff. And then it turns out, in federal court, I'm an FBI informant. Now I think he has got some kind of FEMA position. So the FBI is just always emplacing people everywhere, just like the CIA. They had to do a BONDI operation because of the recent Australian protest against Gaza. Yeah, that could be. The Australian poppy fields fell off with the radar as the fentanyl production ramped up. Well, actually, the Al-Qaeda government got guys out there with sticks and destroyed the poppy crop. They just got guys out there with sticks and made them knock down all the plants. And it cost almost nothing to do. It was a very low tech, serious solution. Everyone forgets that Venezuela was poised to invade Guyana just a few months ago over the latest discovery of oil in Guyana. Yeah, that too. That's a great point, Earl Jackson. Why would Venezuela need that if they have sufficient reserves? The Guyana-Venezuela oil connection? Well, because they are under the sway of China and the narcos, the cartels that have also bought them off as well. So yeah, great points there. Sorry I had missed X. A lot of good discussion there today on Rumble and on X, both. But don't see any more questions or comments. Let's see. Nope, not seeing anything else there. It looks like I didn't transmit on Facebook today. Sorry about that. Somebody let me know if I'm still on YouTube. Again, try and support the show at patreon.com/Jeffrey Prather or jeffreyprather.locals.com. Go into the jeffreyprather.com/shop for your last minute Christmas presents. Or I've got a couple book sets left. If you want to get my books, help at jeffreyprather.com as well. Send you signed copies of those as well. And so in closing, Nick Fuentes and Steve Crowder say Tyler Robinson shot Charlie Kirk. Anyone who says that is either a moron or a Fed, and neither are morons. Steve Bannon wanted to work for Epstein after his conviction. Anyone who supported Epstein supports child rape. Tim Pool, Dinesh D'Souza, and Victor Hansen denounced Tucker and Candace for exposing Israeli Zionism. Anyone supporting Zionism is neither a Christian nor a patriot. You are witnessing the masks come off the controlled opposition pretenders. There is a reason why some liberty luminaries blow up big and fast, and some, like me, do not. Money. False flags are not the exception. They are the rule. The scale is massive, the depth profound. The subject is the only one not in on it, although they often are tricked into thinking they are. Think the Ashley Babbitt sniping. Yes, sniping, like Charlie Kirk. Everyone around her was in on it. And like Judas with Jesus, it is always those closest. Recall the sting with Newman, Redford, and crew. The Marcus Shaw, not innocent, not in on it, but thinking he is. But the show is for us to sell the script. As long as you keep buying it, they'll keep selling it. Are you buying it yet again?